So, just like some of the other videos that we've been making over the past few days, I honestly don't know how to title this one. Normally, when we have a big overarching topic that takes up the entirety of the video's runtime, we can just, put together the title easily. But this time, we're talking about one guy, yes, Ivan Demidov, but we are going over a whole bunch of different Ivan Demidov-related things and ideas. So, big shout out over to the folks on the Habs subreddit, in particular, Go Habs Go 31, who made a bunch of posts that I thought were interesting. And big shout out, of course, to Ivan Demidov himself for being such a stud and a rock star like he is. Now, we don't need to go over the profile, we don't need to go over the numbers and everything, we can just talk about what some other gurus in the hockey analyst writing community are saying about this guy. And the reason I say that is because I wanted to turn your attention to Scott Wheeler of The Athletic, who went out there and published his top 100 drafted NHL prospects list. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, Scott Wheeler, he's kind of crazy, isn't he? And I think absolutely that is the case. Not only is ranking 100 drafted NHL prospects a tall task in and of itself, but you might remember a few weeks ago, Scott Wheeler was the guy who made a full mock draft of all 200-plus NHL draft picks from the 2025 NHL Draft. Of course, he didn't get the majority of them correct, because honestly, once you get past pick 10 of this previous draft, it's a total crapshoot. You don't know who's going 11, 12, or 35. But ultimately, Scott Wheeler is one of the most respected prospect guys in the hockey writing business. As crazy as he is writing these long lists that obviously have a lot of research poured into them, he went out there and ranked Ivan Demidov 3rd overall in his top 100 drafted NHL prospects list. In Tier 1, you have Matthew Schaefer as the number 1 guy. You have Michael Misa, number 2. And then you have Ivan Demidov, number 3. And here's the thing. I can understand some folks that would debate, why is Schaefer number 1? The guy barely played any games, and this and that. Well, it's the same reason he was number 1 in the 2025 draft. Michael Misa being number 2 above Ivan Demidov makes sense too. That guy was an exceptional status superstar. He dominated the OHL. He just absolutely torched the league. He had so many points. He was fantastic. He will be a star in San Jose. But you know who else is going to be a star? That same Ivan Demidov. In fact, it was written out here by Mike Montreal on NHL.com that Demidov is a player who wants the puck, who thrives on challenges to generate scoring chances, and who possesses elite skills and attributes. This, of course, was also posted onto the Habs subreddit. It's right there. But let's go out there and read what Montreal wrote about in regards to Demidov. Some are suggesting this forward could become the next Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Wouldn't that type of player become a nice option for Canadiens coach Martin St. Louis? The 19-year-old Demidov is as dynamic as they come, and was, perhaps, the most complete offensive package from the 2024 NHL draft class. After scoring 49 points, 19 goals, and 30 assists in 65 regular season games with SKA St. Petersburg at the KHL last season, Demidov joined the Habs and scored 2 points in 2 regular season games and 2 assists in 5 playoff games. He's a player who wants the puck, thrives on the challenges to generate scoring chances, and possesses elite skills and attributes. All signs point to him becoming a finalist for the Calder Trophy as the NHL's Rookie of the Year in 25-26. Now, Mike Montreal, of course, he does work for NHL.com. He's been a part of the NHL Draft Class podcast for years. And Demidov, of course, is putting himself in the conversation for the Canadiens to potentially have back-to-back Calders, especially when it wasn't, at least for last year, a weak Calder race. There were genuine game changers competing for the Calder. It's not looking like a weak class next year either, but you never know until you start playing the games. Zane Parekh and potentially Michael Misa, they could be finalists. We'll see what happens with that same Matthew Schaefer from the Islanders organization. Kucherov projection, though. No pressure, kid. On a side note, anyone else cringe each time they hear demigod? Yeah, I don't know. Demigod is a pretty common thing that I see, especially on the NHL video game EASHL lobbies. But let's go out there and compare. I have the tab open already here. Let's do Ivan Demidov versus Nikita Kucherov. Now, the thing that you have to keep in mind here is Ivan Demidov was a 5th overall draft pick. Kucherov was 58th overall. He was not supposed to be as good as he ended up becoming. He was just a run-of-the-mill second-round pick back in 2011 that became a superstar. And I guess Kucherov is like, he is so good that he is above and beyond the levels of a normal superstar. He is like a once-in-a-generation type offense producer that is not really once in a generation because there are other guys that can produce the same amount of points that he does, but Kucherov does it in so few games, and he's got all these awards. He's got, everything over here. He's got the Art Ross Trophy 3 times. He's a 1-time winner of the Hart, 2-time Cup champion, 3-time NHL Most Assists in a Season champion. And if you look at him compared to Ivan Demidov, this is what they were doing when they were draft eligible. Ivan Demidov did outscore Nikita Kucherov in the MHL. Same amount of games played, they both had 41, but Demidov had 62 points versus Kucherov, who had 58, excuse me, oh my goodness, I'm blind. At age 18, Nikita Kucherov, after being drafted, scored 43 points in 23 games played. Ivan Demidov, in what was his draft-eligible season, had 60 points in 30 games. So, yeah, Demidov had a higher points per game than Nikita Kucherov did at the age of 18. At age 19, Kucherov came over to the QMJHL, so it's a little bit different. He had a total of 63 points in 33 games, split between Quebec and Rouyn-Noranda. So it's hard to compare 19 and onwards, but Demidov did produce very well in the KHL that season. You gotta remember here, Nikita Kucherov was never really a primary KHL guy at any stage of his development. He was a Russian junior guy who inevitably went over to the QMJHL and then the AHL by 2013-14. So Nikita Kucherov went through a very strange development path, and I think a lot of this allowed him to go under the radar as a potential elite prospect because a lot of folks saw him in the queue and they're like, oh wow, he's really good. But he's 19. He's already passed his draft year by 2 seasons. So how good is he really going to be when he makes the NHL? Lo and behold, Kucherov inevitably was an over point per game AHL guy, and then he, shortly after, started putting up 100-point seasons back-to-back, and then inevitably back-to-back. So Kucherov is so good. If Ivan Demidov becomes even a sliver of what Kucherov is, I think a lot of Canadiens fans would be happy. And finally, to end things off, I wanted to go over just the maturity aspect of Demidov as a hockey athlete, because this was also posted by Go Habs Go 31 onto the Habs subreddit. Let's take a look at this. It's some commentary from Bogdan Konyushkov, fellow Habs prospect, on meeting Ivan Demidov at Habs development camp. Demidov says he misses Russia, but he decided to prepare in Montreal. I understand him in this and I support him. I wished him only success in the new season. Of course he says he misses Russia, but if the dude has any taste of a true Montreal summer, I am sure he is having fun. Yeah, that's a super mature move from him, and it shows he's all in for next season. At 19 or 20, I'd definitely be spending my summer back at home. The fact that he's choosing to stick around and put in the work says a lot about his work ethic. And that is absolutely what we have seen here. Ivan Demidov is still hanging out with kids in Montreal. He's going out for skates. He's supporting the local stuff going on. It's really mature for him to be able to make those choices, despite the fact that he might be missing Russia. So that, of course, is hopefully going to acclimate Demidov into the Montreal lifestyle and community a lot more. If he does become Nikita Kucherov, then, hey, I think that's a really good prize for Montreal Canadiens fans. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Demidov being ranked as the third best NHL-affiliated prospect, how he could be the next Kucherov, and how he misses home, but he's still sticking it out here in Montreal? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.